Welcome everyone to today's edition of the Production Readiness Subproject. It is Wednesday, June 16th, 2021, and we should have a short meeting today because we've only got a couple of items on our agenda, action item review, and we need to give a subproject report tomorrow at SIG Architecture. I have pasted the notes in the chat. Action item review. Do you want me to share my screen? There's like a billion comments in the Google Doc. Seeing no objections, I will share my screen. We had homework. I did my homework. Did anyone else do the homework?
Yeah, now I'm super embarrassed. Having missed it once and been embarrassed on a forever recorded YouTube call, I will do it more diligently so I don't have to report failure the next time.
That's okay. I think I'm the only person who did this, so it's not just you. You're not a sole report of failure. I wasn't sure how to do this, because we wanted to get some data in terms of, how many PRRs were kind of done in the last week. And maybe we could just say that the ones that I did are representative because it's a reasonable subsection. I don't know. But I did this right after the meeting because I was worried that I was going to forget. And I basically just went in, and every PR I went and I looked and I saw when they requested PRR, when it was actually ready for PRR, and then when it was approved. And my conclusion was only 3 out of 15 were approved before the final week, and more than half of them were approved in the final 3 days. So we have some data. I don't know if everybody else has to also go through theirs, but what do you think?
I did not, to be honest, also. So I'm also embarrassed as David, but just recalling how it looked for me, I think it was pretty similar distribution. I mean, probably I had a little bit more for that happened before, or the week before, or more than a week before the feature freeze, probably 5-ish or 6 or something like that. But yes, probably something similar to your stats in terms of what was happening during the last 3 days. I mean, probably I had a little bit shift from beginning of last week towards the week before, but apart from that, I think it was pretty similar.
Mine isn't very pretty, but this is the list that I kept when I was just keeping track of who I needed to feel guilty about not checking back in on, and who I didn't need to feel guilty about. And you can see that about half of them were less than 2 weeks from the due date.
And a lot of them 24 hours. Oof. Okay, so I think the reason we wanted to get that data wasn't that because we wanted to propose to release team that we have a separate PRR deadline where their PRR questionnaire actually has to be filled out so we can have a full week for review. Do we have enough data to make that ask, I guess is my question. Is that something we want? I did not appreciate having over half of these to review in the last 3 days, and I think I took the last day off because I was so burnt out. So 48 hours of sort of PRR review madness wasn't my favorite thing.
How many days would we try to make it?
I would like a full week. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's fair for me to be able to say, okay, I'm going to do this chunk on this day and just spread them out a little bit more. For me, the hard thing was that they all fell within 2 days and I couldn't do any other work while they were pending.
All right. I don't think I want to require more than a week, at least not to start.
What about you, Wojciech?
Yeah, I don't have strong preference. I'm obviously not opposed for having such deadline before, but I can live in the situation that we are now in. So yes, whatever you, I guess whatever you will decide, I'm fine with that.
So I'm just trying to think about how much that helps us.
So like one of the things for me that was frustrating was that I would go to review them like the week before and they wouldn't have the questionnaire filled out. So I'd end up having to tell them go fill it out, and then they wouldn't actually have it done until like a week before or like a couple of days before the deadline. So all of my reviews got squished together because even though I was trying to review them as they came in, they weren't done. So that was my concern of like they should actually be, like it's similar to how we have like a docs deadline for like you have to have a PR up and it has to be done. Like you can make some changes afterwards, but like you can't wait until 48 hours before the deadline to like do the work.
Could I just ask a quick question though? Because
Sure.
like on the caps that didn't have the PRR completed, did anyone like from the enhancements team point out that it wasn't completed before it hit you? Okay, so that is actually a problem because the enhancements team is supposed to look at these caps and look for like certain things like PRR, graduation criteria, testing, etc., and catch that first and say like, hey, you're supposed to have this, like just as like your first pass, like the first pass is through, that's supposed to be like noted on the cap. Like like this would be at risk because it doesn't have something required that's supposed to be done. So like that's one failure, but that might not like totally rectify what you want because people can wait as long as they want because the deadline is the deadline, which is much later
the thing
anyway.
Actually filled out. Sorry,
Wait,
I cut out.
You froze for me. Yeah. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying. So the PR, what the enhancements team was checking was whether or not it was approved for PRR. And if it wasn't approved, that was kind of the end of that. They didn't go and check to make sure the questionnaire was actually filled out. They were just like, your thing isn't approved, so you need to get it approved. But a lot of them like thought that they had already done it. So like by virtue of just having the like template there, even though they hadn't filled out the questions. So the questions. That was the issue. If somebody could go and ping them like a week in advance, so you've got to that could also be an improvement without having to have like a specific deadline.
I guess most people think that it's like sort of implicit when you say, hey, your PRR is not approved. And one would assume that you would need to have a PRR to get approved. But I think that like that can also be more explicit. Like your PRR is not, because I know that we did that in past cycles. We said your PRR is not filled out. It needs to be filled out. So that's something that can be done.
So thinking about this from like, let's say we did that. It sounds like the next thing that we would do is we would write a tool to find these that don't have it filled out or go through them manually. And we would tell them a week in advance, more than a week in advance, you need to have it done or need to have it filled in by a week in advance. Does that make our lives easier if we were the people to actually do that?
It would not make my life easier.
So I don't want to just make a put for a bunch of other people to do work for our sub project, if that makes sense, right? Like
we are very resource constrained, right? They don't have to review the content, but like the enhancements team is larger than our team. So I think it would be good if they were just check, like all we have to do is check to make sure it's filled out the same way they're checking that like test plans are filled out.
Okay. I guess I'm willing to say this is enough data because I'm looking at it. It looks like it would be about 20 to 25% improvement, right? Based on the caps that would have improved. I'm willing to go talk to them. That's what we said we would try to do next. Once we collected the data, we would go to one of their meetings and make the pitch.
I mean, that should be doable, like, because in past releases, we were like, when the PRR first came about, we were looking at it to make sure that it was filled out. And I think that because now there's this like approval, like extra file, somehow they're just looking for that instead of also the PRR, but it shouldn't be a big deal because they have to look for graduation criteria, test criteria, and the PRR needs to be filled out. Is like, that's something doable. But the other thing that I would encourage you to think about, like maybe you don't want these explicit deadlines, but you can also, as the PRR team, like send emails out to like the mailing list to remind people that they actually need to fill this out, you know, like, and say, like, be explicit about what you want, because some people just might not be clear, and it's within like your control that you can also communicate directly with people and also say like, hey, we have X tracked enhancements and Y of them are missing a PRR review, like we're the PRR team, so you need to get on this. Like that could also be effective so that it doesn't just get lumped into this like enhancements chatter of like, if you have any questions, we're in this channel, like things like that, like just making it more visible, because I do think that it can get a little bit obscured in the just enhancement shuffle. And that could be enough between that and the enhancements team, like checking it and noting it on the first pass. Like that potentially could be enough. I don't know. And less work, because that's not a lot of extra work. It's just like an
Those
email
both sound like improvements to me, so I would be supportive of both.
So yeah, if we come up with something concrete and say we're looking for these questions to be answered, we would appreciate help. See if that team is willing to opt in and help us. I am very open to making a statement that says if your PRR questionnaire is not filled in a week before the KEP approval deadline, this team will not feel bad if your PRR review is not completed. Well, because some of it is the sort of SLA is not obvious to everyone. Like it's not like we're on tap and you ask us and 5 minutes later we're going to review it and we're going to tell you what's wrong. We also budget time for it, and so having that, like if it's not here by this date, if we can get to it, we'll try, or I'll try. I mean, I guess I don't want to be that guy that makes someone's kept not getting because I didn't take the time to look at it. But if it wasn't ready at least a week before, I won't feel bad if you don't make it.
Yeah, maybe we should just have like as part of this. So I think it would be good to like have our sort of like reminder email template that we can just mail out to the whole project, like to Kubernetes dev or whatever. And then that way we don't have to think about very much. Like we can just send it once a release and rotate that responsibility. It would be good if we had an actual SLA, like saying, you know, you have to have, like if we say, you know, we need a week's notice, and whether or not we get around to it, like that is when we will be holding ourselves accountable to if it's not like reviewed within a week. I don't know if like a week is the right number or if we want to have a specific thing other than that. But if you think a week is fine, I certainly think a week is fine. Like a week is plenty. I think less than that might be pushing it, because if everybody's like, oh, well, you said, you know, 48 hours, then we might get over it.
Because
they'll take it to the end.
Yeah.
But I think that could be reasonable as well. I think I would like for the exact date, if we offer an SLA, I would like to get John's input before we offer that. But taking the request up to the enhancements team for, can you check to see that the content is here? I like that. When's their next meeting?
It would just be the release team, but you can also just add it into I'll send you the link into the release team retro doc, and that'll just get probably approved and then folded into the next release, like explicitly.
So Christian, you're cool with taking that action?
Yeah.
Okay, I will assign that to you. And then I guess also for the next meeting, let's follow up with John about an SLA and like an email template for the next release.
Yeah.
I would just suggest, just because I've had to bug people a lot, I would say send an email to KDev, but then because the SIGs are starting to own their KEPs more, I would just go to each SIG channel that like is sort of underwater on their PRRs and say, like, you have this many KEPs, but we only have this many PRRs. Like at some point before your deadline, just to like make it visible. Because I just think that it's not like the work that you have to do isn't visible, and that could also be the problem. And I think if you like explicitly tell SIG, so like, hey, like, you have 5 KEPs and we have 0 PRRs. You have 10 KEPs and we have 6. Like, you should work on this. Like, take a look. Like, I think especially the bigger SIGs will look.
I'm gonna
Just yeah.
Rather than making
sorry.
it an action, I'm just gonna add it to the next week's or next meeting's agenda, so that way we don't forget about it. Okay, great. I think that about covers that one, so I'll mark this as resolved. Woohoo! What else do we have here? Okay, we liked the spreadsheet. What's going on with KepCuddle, David?
Ooh, that was me grimacing. I have pulled the repo, but I did not fix it.
Okay.
Uh,
Is that enough? No. What's going on with KepCuddle? No update. So is that something we should follow up with next time?
yes, and not to try to make you, to offer you the option of helping to compensate for my lack of organization. I am open to receiving a nag a couple times before the next meeting if you feel so inclined.
What I will do is I'll put this at the top of the next agenda and I'll tag you, so that way it will send you an email and it will pester you in your inbox, and I'll just resolve the one from the previous meeting, so we don't have to scroll down.
Yep.
Oh yes. So this was another thing for the release team retro. Kirsten, this was assigned to you, giving feedback on the PRR column in the spreadsheet, which was, did we do that already?
Yeah, I'm actually just adding it to the retro doc right now. So I was just adding both things.
Oh,
and this
awesome.
is just a work in progress. So it's like, you can add whatever else you want to that. I just added after we talked, I added a placeholder, and then I saw John's comment, so I added that, but it's just a work in progress. So like, we can just add stuff.
It's good that this link is in here. I'll add it to where I also actioned you, if I can find it. Release team retro doc. Okay. Topic for another meeting. How strict should we be with how features what? I don't know what that means, but
this was the one
this.
we were trying to come up with standards for how you know if the feature is working. Can you just say tools exist to do this, or do you have to point to an example? And I think that's another one where we probably all want to agree.
We want John for that one. Okay, let me punt that to next meeting.
Right, just because it is it's a significant change.
Yeah. So this is from May 21.
And I suspect that if we were to change that, that is going to have to get reflected in some sort of PR to the template itself, saying you have to actually provide an example. You can't just say tools exist to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. And then I guess we have this old action item about what's going on with the survey data. So I guess let's carry that one forward and ping John again. If I can spell his name, goodness. Okay, so we've got a bunch of things carried forward and like one new thing, and I think I can probably resolve all of these so they don't rot in the backlog. Do we have any new things for today? Is there anything that I missed for action item review? Sounds like no.
All that I know. Yeah.
Great. Okay. In that case, we have one item on the agenda, which is sub-project report for SIG architecture tomorrow. Who's doing it?
Is that after the existing SIG meeting?
I'm just trying to find, I'm checking my schedule.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's after the community. It's after the community.
It's
call,
after
right?
the community meeting. It's at 11. I was not planning on going, but I am free to go if you need me to. I wasn't planning on going to the community meeting either, so.
I have to present the community meeting, but I'll be finished before this other one. Well, since I'll be presenting already, I can go and give the sub-project update. This one for the Arch call is just verbal. It's not slides, right?
Yeah. It's just what have we been up to?
Okay.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, I can go present that, and I'll write up some notes. Probably just before, but I'll write up some notes in the morning if you guys want to have a look and see if I forgot anything.
Yeah, it's just a 5-minute like thing, and
Sounds good to
that's
me.
all. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I just remember for the community call for the SIGs, we actually had a template we had to fill out. So it sounds like this one's easier. So
Yeah, I think so. Should be easier. Okay, that's it for agenda items. Anything else we should cover today? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I can give you the SIG architecture thing just so that you can like add yourself.
Oh, I'm editing it now, I think.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Great. Oh, I see Walter has added Walter. Is Walter here? Hi, Walter. Sorry, I missed you.
Chef Taco Walter or different Walter?
Chef Taco Walter.
Hey, Walter.
Anything you want to add for today's meeting? Here, let me accept your suggestion. Is it
Nope,
Taco
all
with a
good.
K? I think so. Cool. Okay. Thanks for joining us today. Did you have any questions?
Nope, all good.
Okay, cool. I think we're done for today. Have an excellent extra 35 minutes.
Sounds good.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.